All right, what up, everybody? Good evening. I am here with Mark Black of Black Outcast Media. I should probably tell you I'm Vita. I didn't announce that part either. I'm Vita, Vita Star, Champagne Sharks, and along with me, Mark Black of Black Outcast Media. How are you doing today, Mark?
Hey, I'm doing all right, sis. What's good, family? Peace.
Man, I'm so glad you decided to join me because I've been online and I get really annoyed by the way certain conversations are had about relationships, about mental health. People use a lot of triggering talking points just to spark controversy
Yep.
about very serious and very important topics. Um, One of those things being, Black love and relationships, and you and I feel very strongly about the importance of that. And I think what happens is because there's so much controversy in certain topics, and we're always fueling this sort of ignorant ass gender war.
Yeah.
And media has caught on, mainstream media has caught on and has been fanning these flames as well. We're also getting content creators and influencers, quote unquote, podcasters, bloggers and shit, fanning those flames as well.
Yeah.
Not because they give a fuck about Black people and they care about our relationships, they care about our families, they care about our mental health. It's not because of any of that. It's because they're trying to build content for their brand. And so
hmm
many of us have become gullible and fallen prey to content branding. And we're in the comments arguing about shit that is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I'm consistently blown away at our propensity to feed this because you got to understand, like, when we was talking about it, earlier, one of the things that kind of hit me about the whole topic is that okay, so my mom's told me a long time ago. She said a monkey can't climb on your back unless you bend over and let him get on, right? You know what I'm saying? And so I want to make sure that when we discuss this topic, that we discuss it from both points of view or from both sides, right?
Mm-hmm.
From the content creators, they have a responsibility, right? Because they're, as you say, they have no interest whatsoever in resolving the various issues that they bring up, and things like that. But we also too have to understand that we oftentimes choose to engage more dramatic, less informational, more controversial content, right?
Mm-hmm.
I did a broadcast this past Saturday talking about entertainment, and
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned in that we have lost sight of what is supposed to be entertainment, and I think that
Yes.
un,
It's
until
inconsistent with real life.
yeah, like we really don't get it. Like for many of us, entertainment is bullshit, drama, rancor, garbage. Like it's brain junk food. Long as I don't have to think and I get an emotional shot of dopamine from it or whatever the case may be, I'm cool, right? But just like content creators have a responsibility to put out content that is good content, entertainment is reciprocal is what I'm saying, Vita. You get where I'm coming from? It's a transaction. It's a two-way street, you dig? Right? So yeah, that's I hope we can have us a solid discussion on both aspects of it because I think it's a conversation well worth having. Oh, you muted, sister.
Sorry, I was coughing and I didn't want to be like interrupted sound wise. Also trying to text T at the same time.
Right.
But absolutely, I have no doubt this conversation is gonna like really take us places. So I have zero doubt because there's so much we've seen and there's so much we can comment on. And I also want to encourage the people in the chat to join in on the conversation. Give us your comments, your thoughts, because even though it's Mark and I talking on the video, your thoughts and opinions are extremely important to me as well. And I definitely want to make sure we include you in this conversation. Also, I want to give a shout out and a thank you to the early people in the chat. Again, I know I suck at trying to say some of y'all's names, but Pensive of Door, welcome back. You're always here. Thank you for being a supporter. Outlaw, same to you. Thank you. Warshak 1313. Is that from Watchmen?
I
War-
think so.
It's what it
Because
sounds like.
Rorschach was a character in The Watchmen.
Yeah, okay. And yeah, in the movie and the TV show too, right? Yeah. So Huey Freeman, shout out to you. Thank you for joining again. Uh B Scott, I Sound Info. Hope I got everybody. If I missed you, I apologize. But if you keep chatting, I'll make sure I catch you. So definitely want you guys to support. And if you hear anything that you like, feel free to hit that donate button and that super chat button and, support. And because this is how we're able to keep doing this. I promise you, none of this shit is free.
Facts.
And, also subscribe on our Patreon and which is Champagne Sharks. We're Champagne Sharks everywhere. So if you just type Champagne Sharks, you're going to get us, nothing else, which is what
That's
makes the
the
name so
dopest
brilliant.
name
Right? I said
ever.
the
Like,
same shit.
serious.
But yeah, so what I want to make sure that we talk about is how we see relationships talked about and portrayed online, right?
Right.
So right now, who the new hot couple is right now. I don't know if you've heard.
Mm.
Oh my God, Michael B. Jordan and Lori Harvey.
Oh, shit. I did hear about that. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. My love affair with celebrity ended pretty much years ago. Like, and
Same.
it really started for me around the time I started taking life kind of more serious. And I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else. Trust me, I love entertainment. I think we need entertainment. Black folk need entertainment, like we need air, water, food, etc. So I'm not knocking entertainment. It's just that I found that what I consider to be entertaining is not common, if you know what I'm saying. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'll pick up a damn a nonfiction book, like on a topic and be entertained by that, right? So I usually tend to don't really engage with like, current events, hot topics, all that other stuff. But one thing I do make sure to pay attention to is how we're portrayed in various media, right? So
Yep.
yeah, absolutely. I
Mm.
mean, but here's the crazy part. Okay, so like this whole thing with Michael B and Lori's relationship or whatever. Okay, fine. People gonna make their comments. They're gonna chop about it or whatever, right? But it's like when there are positive relationships that are, between celebrities, people don't really talk about them, or when they do, they denigrate them. Like, look at the
Right.
shit that Russell Wilson get. You know
Yes.
what I'm saying? This man
Absolutely.
is a dedicated father, a stepfather, and a father, right? A loving husband. In every interaction you see with him and his family, it is literally the epitome of what everybody claimed they want in a love relationship with
Right.
somebody. But he gets called simp. He gets called stupid. You know what I'm saying? He's a sucker. Like,
Yo, it's so crazy what they project onto a relationship that they know nothing about. That's
well,
the part that
you know what? It's funny because you were talking about projection the other day, and so they not only project their bullshit on a relationship, because no, we don't know any of these people, right?
right,
Like, we only get the images in the media that we get of Russell Wilson. Now, I describe the images that we see of him,
right,
right? I don't know this man from a can of paint. Like, legit. He could walk into my house and it would take me a second to recognize who this fool was before I shot him, right? You know what I'm saying? So, like, I don't
I
know shit
believe that.
about Russell Wilson, right? But the images,
Right.
what I think is disturbing to me, sis, is our willingness to engage imagery and caricature as reality. In other words, it's almost like our people have sloughed off the responsibility of getting to actually know people and instead just simply interact with the image of that person that they have in their head. And that's
Yes.
troubling because it's not relational. It's like pseudo relational.
No,
It's
absolutely.
like I think the term is parasocial. Am I
Paris,
using that term right?
I think
Parasocial,
I think
like, yeah, like you're not really. engaging socially. It's like an abstraction of social engagement.
Mm. So you're not, because you're not even talking to a full person, especially online, right? You're
Right.
talking to, you're interacting with a comment, which is why sometimes people start to make up stories about you. Oh, this must be like people. Somebody said to me, "Oh, you must relate to Lori Harvey." That's why I'm like, how on earth can I relate to Lori Harvey? Am I a wealthy daughter of a multi-millionaire? Am I, this supermodel looking girl who says nothing on, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
Like,
like
but
in
they
what
create these
way does
stories.
she have any like validity to Vita? Or conversely,
She does.
Michael
She
B.
doesn't talk.
Jordan. I will
What does she do? She doesn't do anything. She doesn't talk. We literally
boom.
just see pictures of her. That's it. She
But isn't
has.
it amazing? And you know what? Shout out to iSound Info, because when I say our people, maybe I should explain. Whenever I comment or do commentary or discuss anything, I discuss it from the topic of us, Black Americans, our tribe. I understand that these things, happen with other ethnic demos, etc. I'm just simply saying that for me, my emphasis is on addressing our needs, our issues, and so on and so forth. You feel me? So thank you for the heads up on that, though, iSound Info, because you're absolutely right.
I'm trying to. I'm not as good at T at trying to maneuver all these things, so forgive
Take
me,
your
y'all.
time, sis. Take your time.
I'm trying to do chat, and I know I say this like every time I'm on here, but I don't think y'all understand how much of a challenge it is for me. Because at the same time, the most important part for me is the conversation. But I do understand when you're producing live, you got to produce live. So please know I'm trying to get to everyone's comments, and please, if Mark, if you happen to see any comments in the chat that you want to highlight, please go ahead and read those aloud if I'm
Yeah,
missing.
of course.
It's a
Yeah,
lot.
absolutely. iSound Info said, I don't think it's just our people. That sort of parasocial engagement is across the board. And I was
Oh,
just
right.
agreeing with that comment because he's absolutely right. Or, they're absolutely right. Right. I just want to make clear, though, that when I speak, I'm speaking to us, about us, for us. Right.
Right.
That's just, my POV. So,
Right,
yeah.
absolutely. But to touch on what you were just talking about, I'll look at this tweet. I don't know if you can,
Mhm.
hopefully you can see it.
I can see it.
Yeah, so this was interesting because I thought the comment was wild. So Idris Elbow, who on Twitter,
Hmm.
um, he tweets a lot of stuff. Um, he said, I asked niggas on here a while ago why they don't like Russell Wilson. And damn near all of them admitted their issue wasn't with Russell, it was with Sierra. Right? I've also noticed this a lot in the comments. People are mad at Sierra because she was, a whore or something. That's what they call her. But mind you, they don't know this girl from Adam.
Facts.
They don't even know this
They
girl.
don't know her. They don't know Future. They don't know
Right.
Russell Wilson. But everybody got something to say, don't they?
So look at what this guy says. He says, my issue is with both. Now, first of all, let's start with the first sentence there. Your issue is with two people you don't fucking know. Let's just start with that.
Get them.
My issue is with both. What are you talking about? Let's just
Like,
start.
what's the issue? You know
Right.
what? You could read 10,000 of these tweets a day, and you could read what their reasoning is. And when you're done, you actually feel stupider than you did when you started reading the tweet.
Look, it's look. I, I don't. People. I like what this person said. Very true. People make up an image of you, then get mad at the image. Listen on Twitter. They will read something you said, create a whole nother thing in their imagination, and then respond to that as though you said it. Which I will also show you more of that in this conversation. And mind you, my conversation is going to just stick to Twitter. It's going to go beyond that. But I just want to give you guys the foundation of the conversation because this is bigger than just Twitter, where I'm going to take it. But at any rate, going back to this tweet. So he says, my issue is with both. She manipulating the dog shit out of him. How do you know that?
Obviously, he was in the room during, the time when they was, shuffling the legal papers and everything.
And let's say you do know that. How focused on their relationship have you been that you know what they doing in it?
Ooh.
So out of the way, you sound like a fucking weirdo. Okay, so she's manipulating the dog shit out of him, and he's simping and giving fairy tale endings to a thotty. What?
Sister, I'm telling you, my brain cells are trying to like compute, and it's not like the code is malfunctioning. I can't. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The thing is that one of the things that I find interesting about this whole dynamic is not just the projection, but how willing we are to openly do it. Like if you were to tell Black Revenge here, King Dre 901, bruh, you projecting, like you don't know none of this shit. He would legit look at you as if you was crazy. He would be like, wait a minute, what are you talking about, man? It's everywhere. Everybody know what's going on, but nobody knows shit.
Look, I'm so confused on how he decided that he's simping and giving a fairy tale ending to a thotty. First of all, what does that mean? What is fairy tale ending? And why does she not deserve it?
A good ass question.
Thought, and what is that? Why can't thoughts have fairy tale endings if that's what this in fact is? And how do you know this is what this is? And if it's a fairy tale ending, how is it?
How's that bad?
Right. Like, what is the bad? She's manipulating him into making sure she's taken care of as a wife. I'm so lost. Oh, what the fuck you're talking about? Like this. And the thing that's so crazy is he typed this shit out like it made sense. I'm gonna show you this conversation because it was fucking insane. And I just had to talk about this because I just couldn't believe this is the thought process of people out there. So I felt like we should just address this head on.
Yeah.
This is insane. Okay. After Future smutted her out, what does that mean? How is one smut out their girlfriend?
Okay, like I know what these terms mean.
I don't. But listen, I don't know.
But the thing is that they're nonsensical. Like you might as well you could replace smutted with, blurbed her. He blurbed her out, and it would make just as much sense. Like seriously, it's not that.
Okay, so this is the thing. I think what they're trying to say is that Future treated her like the slut she is. What that means specifically, I don't know. Maybe because he was cheating on her. I don't really know how that is a fault of hers, but apparently somehow him being with her is smutting her out.
Wait a minute, I got a question for you, right? Okay, so they throwing all the fire shade and smoke at Russell and Sierra, right?
Right.
We're that same fire shade and smoke for Future who smutted her out. He in his tweet, he's openly admitting that Future like did her dirt, right? But he ain't got no issue with Future having done her dirt, right? He's got an issue with the fact that she decided she didn't want to be done dirty and looked for a way out, looked for another path to walk. Right. Like, the more you read this type of stuff, the more you realize that there's a lot of folk whose whole idea of winning is only jailed to them to the extent that someone else is holding the L. Like, there can't be no mutual come up. Like, it can't be that, hey, Future's better off, Russell and Sierra better off. You know what I'm saying? Good. Everybody good, right? No. Somebody in this thing has to be holding the L for it to be acceptable to people. Like somebody got to be miserable. Somebody got to be fucked up. Somebody else, somebody had to been the one that's, that was just the devil in the whole situation. How come it couldn't be that, hey, Future's doing, he's living his best life. Sierra and Russell living their best life. all's well that ends well.
You would think that. You would definitely think that. But like you pointed out, there has to be a wrong and a right. There has to be a good guy and a bad guy. And I don't think most things are that binary. Like you just pointed out, what if this situation is great for everybody?
Facts.
Future's not with somebody who doesn't make him happy. He's moved on. Sierra's not with somebody that doesn't make her happy. She's moved on. Russell's not with saying he divorced his wife. You know, he's in a better situation. Maybe everybody found what works for them. Why does there have to be this whole story and narrative that you created in your imagination that she's this terrible person because she's manipulating Russell to the point where he's simping and giving her, and by simping, I guess it means he's like whipped, you know, like a sucker for love type nigga, you know, and giving fairy tale endings to a thottie, because apparently she's now a thought because she was with Future. After Future then smutted her out, he cut her off, and she needed a savior. What are you talking about? Who said she needed a savior?
Vita, when we're going to talk about the elephant in the room, the elephant in the room is the fact that Schadenfreude is one of the few pleasures that Black people are really allowed to have in this society, especially when it relates to other Black people. You know Schadenfreude, right?
I was about to ask what that is.
Okay. Shout out to the Germans with their compound words, right? Schadenfreude is the feeling of joy that you get in someone else's pain or suffering.
Oh, like a sadist.
Not necessarily, because I mean, sadism does have that, you know, sort of pseudo-sexual or sexual, quasi-sexual element to it, right? But more along the lines of that enjoyment you get when a motherfucker slip and fall, or you know, when they make a mistake, you go, see, I told you, you know, like,
I
right?
Mm-hmm.
Black folk, we're not really allowed to, because I talked about this in my entertainment broadcast, we're not really allowed to be in joy, right? To feel in joy. Like, okay, so white folks see us enjoying shit, and they be like, well, what are them, you know, what can we do to ruin that, right? But then Black folk see us feeling joy or enjoy, and then they be like, well, what's this nigga happy about? My life miserable, blah, 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 blah. You see what I'm saying?
I definitely get that. First of all, real quick, shout out to Don5. Appreciate the donation. Thank you very, very much. But to what you just said, I totally see it, because think about how much our joy has been criminalized. Right?
Black joy is criminal.
Literally
it's not just criminally sanctioned, it's socially sanctioned.
So, but listen, it's legally sanctioned, socially sanctioned. It's to the point where physical violence has been put upon us because of us experiencing joy. Slaves were not allowed to experience joy. That's why the safest places we had were church, because white folks wasn't too much gonna fuck with the church. I mean, they did, but not too much.
Yeah.
In comparison, right?
Yeah.
But so that was the spaces, and it's funny because a lot of the way that we celebrate in church, we think it has to do with like, well, not us, but most people think it has to do with like some type of Holy Spirit thing. But a lot of that was just Black people's few times they were able to be free to dance and sing and be joyous.
Boom. Boom.
So we've always had to sort of hide that, and we had to associate it with their religion and their God in order for it to be justified and accepted.
Wait a minute, Vita. It gets deeper than that, because we acculturate ourselves early on to operate that way. Yes. Look at your mama jokes and playing the dozens, right?
Absolutely.
We start off as younglings being acculturated that somebody else's pain, especially if they look like us, is our pleasure. Oh, I'm about to make this nigga cry. Watch this, right? You know what I'm saying? Like we don't examine the fact that a lot of what drives us to engage with each other the way we do is driven by the need to give others pain so that we can experience joy. We understand that it's a transaction, but we got the transaction fucked up, right? Like other people will say, oh, hey, I'm happy, you're happy, let's be happy together, right? Black
Mm-hmm.
folk be like, well, I'm not gonna be happy because look at this motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? Right? So now this motherfucker's in the mud, they in the dirt, they life struggle, they suffering. Now it's okay. It's acceptable for me to be like, yeah, everything's all right with the world. And it's a sickness that we pass on in our culture.
That's real though, and I think that, and I'm glad you put it that way too, because it highlights so many other parts of intergenerational trauma and how it plays out in literally every aspect of our lives, even though we want to kind of relegate it to things like politics and education and whether or not I'm depressed today. But we don't even think about how it has played out in our day-to-day, everyday behavior, right?
Yeah,
So like what you're pointing out and highlighting, I'm so glad you took it there. Um, we have been conditioned in so many ways to not only shut down our own joy, but to shut down others.
facts.
Right?
Absolute facts.
Because
2008 B. Scott sister said, if Russell's happy, he must be brainwashed or manipulated. And that right there is a key statement because
exactly.
okay, so we living in white supremacy slash racism, right? Life for black Americans is hell and has been hell. What kind of nigga who's sane is happy? Right? This is the thought process. This is the mindset that we have. Nigga, what you got to be happy about? My life miserable. Like God forbid you should find a space to exhale, to be like, damn, all right, this is cool, right? Like, God forbid you should find a space for indwelling joy in you,
Yeah.
real, true happiness that don't depend on nobody else's struggle, they suffering, but just an authentic pleasure that just
Yeah.
comes from things being considered kind of all right at this moment with the world.
But that's the thing. We have that being able to be present in the moment and enjoy that moment. That's a practice that takes years to really get
Oh,
there. And you and I have both dealt with a similar type of depression. We both dealt with issues around our weight, um, and the correlation to our depression because of
yeah.
our weight, and and the cycle that really is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you have to be able to sit down with yourself and really do some introspection and really begin like do things like meditate. It's really that's a challenge to get to yourself to that point. So it's hard for you to enjoy your moment because we've been so conditioned to always be in survival mode. And if
Facts.
when you understand survival mode, that means your amygdala, your brain is literally always on high alert.
Yep.
Most black men, I'm from South Central, like you guys know, so most of the black people I grew up around are from here. And I can't tell you almost all of my black male friends and family members that are from here, if we go somewhere, they never look comfortable. They're always looking around.
That's facts.
Who's wearing what, and it doesn't matter what, it's not just because they're in South Central. They have that same behavior no matter where we are. Most black men I notice will not sit with their back to the door if you go to
By the
a
way, sister, I wanted to shout out Lazarus Lives ×3 for the super chat. He said quintessentially a player hater by definition,
that's
right?
cute.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's
I
cute with
mean,
his champagne shirts.
oh, that's what's up. But the thing is that there is a specific reason though why that is, and we need to start. One of the issues I've had recently, like it's been pissing me off. Like a kind of like a needle that's sticking under your skin, and like a splinter, and you can't get it out of there and shit. It's irritating the hell out of me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really mad about the hijacking of the term conscious, right? Because what consciousness have come to mean to most black folk is some motherfucker sitting around, wearing like kente cloth with, juju beads on and shit,
Right.
talking about decalcifying their pineal gland and they overstanding everything with their third eye open. When consciousness really just means awareness. It just simply means to be aware of things, right? And I have been stressing a lot lately that Black folk need to live more consciously. I know it's a struggle. I know when you're in survival mode, that's almost, it almost seemed like a luxury
And
to ask hard questions
exactly.
to, but to the extent that we don't, sister, we continue to remain in these twisted dynamics, and we legit have no understanding as to why these things are occurring.
So this is the thing, and I'm glad you really wrote that, like, help me transition to points and topics that I'm already got in my head.
Who got you, sis?
Because what you're saying is also really important. We have people like you and I. We share our stories. We talk about these topics because we actually care about our people.
Yeah.
We're actually trying to create those conversations so you guys can feel safe and know that there are people who are hearing you, and there are people who are similar, people who also are going to help you challenge your ideas as you challenge ours, right? There is safe space for that. And I think that's what Champagne Sharks does. I think that's what your show does, Black Outcast Media. I think that's the important role that I think we play. And I appreciate that about you. I appreciate that about Resistance Noir. I appreciate that about, all the various shows and content creators that are doing things purposefully and intentionally to share information and support their people. And then you have people who are using our pain, using the trauma, using the rifts between Black men and Black women to basically make money off of it.
Yep.
Not to give you information, not to support you, not to give you advice that helps you, that encourages you, that enriches you, that motivates you. No, they want you to be entertained and laugh at another Black person's pain.
Mm-hmm.
That's what your boy Kevin Samuels does. His whole niche is, how do I entertain you by being rude and mean to people? Not just women. I noticed that the women clips are what goes viral, but he's been terrible to men too, just berating them. And I feel like, for example, what good does it do to ask someone how they rate themselves physically, and then you tell them no, they're not? And who made you
the arbiter?
Right, exactly. So you have people like him who are creating content to be controversial, to make money off of you being like, yeah, I think you're putting that terrible bitch in her place. She ought to know she's not good enough to be with a guy who makes six figures. Why are you so invested in that?
The thing is if you look at our lives, our everyday lives, right? Our everyday lives are fairly mundane, right? We all operate pretty much on the same level. We get our ass up, we try to get some food in the refrigerator, something on the bills. We spend all day doing that. If we lucky, we get some playtime with the kiddos or some lovies from the your mate or whatever. Mm-hmm. Then you go to bed and you do it again, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with us kind of seeing ourselves in other people. Like, there's nothing wrong. Like, when I was a kid, I used to want to be an astronaut, right? So I had a poster of Guillaume Buford on my wall, right? First Black astronaut, right? I used to just idolize this man. There's nothing wrong with seeing your life kind of through the eyes of someone else. The problem comes in when you assume that their life is going to be your life. In other words, if I had started to take on the man's mannerisms and every word he said, I was bigging him up and this, that, and the third, it goes from being this healthy, hey, he's an example of what I know I can be, to I'm going to be him, right? And a lot of people don't realize that when they identify with these content creators, these corny content creators, what they're actually saying is that my life don't mean shit to me. It's no value, right? I find all my value over here in this content, which is why they take it so personal. Which is why when you say, well, wait a minute, Kevin, he's human. He make mistakes. He says stupid shit. He's mean. He can have a bad day. He lost some money on the stock market, right? His balls is cold. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. I'm just saying, the nigga human, right? So he'll do something stupid, and you say, oh, that was kind of off brand. That was stupid. What you talking about? You don't know shit. You probably one of them. And they go off into that narrative shit, right? Exactly. Because you got to understand, sister, when you say that about, say, like Kevin Samuels, right? They don't take it as you're talking about him. They take it as you're talking about them.
Yes.
Because
they agree
he is them.
Yeah, they identify with him.
Exactly. They identify.
And that's why they identify with. It's like I love how you say shit. Basically, they've created this fantasy for themselves. He gets to say what they've been thinking, what they've been feeling. He's saying it, and they get to basically live vicariously through him.
And how much power, though, is in that?
Tell women, that they're not good enough for the men that they want, right? Like he gets to be the one to tell them that.
Sister, how much power is in that? We just have a president for the last 4 years that told a whole nation of motherfuckers that they was the most exceptional, best people on the planet. They were the smartest, that everybody was lying to them, that everybody was tricking them, that they knew better, right? Yeah. And all of that. 70 some odd million Americans identified with this man to the point where they were willing to burn down the motherfucking Capitol. Like, there's power in creating a narrative that people tie themselves to. And this is why I was mentioning in the beginning that when we have this conversation, yes, it's important to point out these lousy ass content creators. But we also have to start to take some real hard looks at ourselves. And what is it about us that drives us into the arms of these demagogues, these...
And you're jumping ahead of me, Mark.
My bad, sis. Hey, I'm not trying to steal your thunder. This is me falling back.
No, it's just like, no, you're saying all the right things. But it's just that I have so many other things before we get to that point, because you're hitting something that's super core to what I really want to drive this to. And I really want to take this to even the comments that I'm seeing in here. Like Outlaw pointed out, to be fair, people who call into Kevin Samuels' show tend to be a bit delusional. Now, I want to make something very clear. What I'm talking about has nothing to do with whether or not people called in, whether or not they're delusional or not, because all that's subjective. My point is that his content is not meant to help anybody. It's meant to entertain our bloodthirsty asses. Yep. That's really all that is. And I like how someone said it's the Judge Judy model. Yep. That's exactly what it is. And everybody started, remember, all the judges started trying to copy that model, where they started yelling.
Exactly. What was that Judge Joe Brown? He was an asshole too.
All of these people.
All these judges on TV.
Exactly. And they were assholes and rude. And again, I don't think, but for the most part, most of us, because they tell you in the beginning, this is an actual court. This is just really an arbitration. So legally it works, but technically this ain't real court. And we're just here to entertain you. That's what it says. If you guys read the thing, or you listen to what they say, that's pretty much what they say. This is entertainment. Judge Judy, nobody's confused in thinking Judge Judy is really this judge that, because we would get her fucking fired. She'd have to be out of there. You know what I mean? If this was real. But it's not. The thing is, we can't confuse these other content creators for being real, advice people. This isn't even about whether people called in, whether they're delusional. It's about the fact this is the type of content he decides he's going to run on his channel, on his platform. This is the way that he has decided to utilize this space, a space that could be used. Maybe people are, need to work some things out. Every time I've seen a clip, the issue was much deeper than the superficial shit he was talking about.
Oh, most definitely.
He was talking about money and weight and looks and how many kids people got. It had nothing to do with, dealing with their inner selves and the trauma that they've been dealing with, and how that has. In fact, he berates them for having the trauma, and then telling them you have this fucked up outlook on men. Well, the person's traumatized. Let's talk about that. If your goal is to help, if your goal is to berate people, which it is, then that's what you're going to get. So to me, like, who's calling in, Autism, and even like you pointed out, looking at ourselves, why are we so thirsty for that content? Why are we so excited to watch him to put this delusional person who thinks who thinks they're better than they are? They don't deserve this person that would make them happy. Who do they think they are? Think about how insane that sounds. Who do they think they are? Who gives a fuck what they think as far as that goes? What is the real conversation we should be having underneath that? If my goal is to help somebody with relationship issues, okay, that's cool. You want the six-figure guy. But let's talk about how you handle relationships that you're in now.
Yeah.
How are you communicating with people? Because it don't matter if you got $100,000 a year, $1 million a year, or $50,000 a year. You can fuck all those relationships up if your shit ain't straight in your own healing. It don't fucking matter how much money that nigga got.
Not to mention the fact that nigga can have all that money and be the worst piece of shit you ever ran across. You know what I'm saying? Like, money is not character.
Abusive men, whether they make $100,000 a year or $50,000 a year, you still attract abusive men or attracted to abusive men, and you don't even know why. So the fact that he focuses on that superficial shit to berate you lets you know that the show is not about helping anybody. Now, people who call into the show, that's their business. But the fact that this is what we're confusing with being good, we're excited to watch this shit. And he's not helping anybody. I guess because I'm a person, as a trauma-informed care educator, a person who sits down and works with people, working with families for damn near 20 years now. I know I'm old. But
girl, go on.
Damn near 20 years now. And when I see people use the terminology and they use the psychology and they use all these things to weaponize it against people so they can build their brand, I take issue with it, especially when we're using it against Black people. I'm real about this shit. Yeah. Do you know how much of our issues we could be addressing if we worked on our inner selves first and healed? First of all, realizing you've been through some shit, because Black folk love being in denial. I healed already. You ain't even did no fucking work. What the fuck you heal from?
You know what cracked me up? Motherfucker talk about how they got their ass kicked when they was a kid and said, and look at me, I turned out all right. No, you didn't.
You think it's okay to kick kids' ass. So no, you're not fine.
You did not turn out okay. You think it's all right to hit little humans. Right. You're not wrapped too tight. You know what I'm saying? But you know, sister, it's funny to me how the conversations that we really need to be having are the ones that nobody wants to have, right? Because one thing that I figured out that I don't like, but it's true, is that there's a lot of, I will say, mental laziness that's extent. And I know that seems like I'm blaming people, but I want to make it clear that I'm not necessarily blaming more than I am trying to highlight the fact that what you're talking about us doing, right? Like what I do on my broadcast and what you do here is our work. It's our mitzvah, right? It's our gift to our people, right? And we give it with intention and with care and with kindness. But no one would deny that it takes effort. It may seem easy to these people when they watch us and hear us speak, but they don't understand the nights we've been up late looking at the etymology of a word, just so that we can be able to explain the concepts behind that word in a way that the average one of our people will understand. They don't see the work that we put in behind the scenes. And I think that when they engage with us, they understand that engaging with people like us is a process. This is not going to be a one and done. This ain't going to be something I can just click on and passively consume and be like, oh, the nigga's crazy and keep it pushing. No, when you engage with Sister Vita or when you engage with Brother Mark or other people that try to do it like we do, it demands a relationship. It demands an ongoing engagement. And a lot of folk don't want to put in their side of the transaction. Like we put ours up on the screen. Like we can't hide. Here's our contribution. Here's our share of the relationship that we're trying to build with these folk. But they get to hide behind theirs. They can just, I clicked like on the video. That ain't engagement, nigga. Are we gonna talk about this shit or we gonna talk about this shit?
But how, I mean, some people don't even have their own profile pictures up there. You know what I mean? Like they got pictures of cartoon characters that aren't even associated with them or like a business or anything. You
Like,
know?
how dissociated do you have to be to not even want to like let people know who you actually are through a very relatively safe medium like the internet?
And well, because people want to be able to say dumb shit and hide. You know? Because they're
Oh
like, oh,
yeah,
I'm gonna lose my job. Well, maybe you shouldn't be on here saying. Maybe the problem is you say shit that is probably ridiculous, you know, or
yeah.
offensive or whatever.
It could be that you just acting a dumbass and you need to be held to account.
Or you just scared to stand by your shit. Anything I say, I can stand by. You know, controversial or not, I know where I stand on shit. Um, and I also am not afraid to say I learned something different or I changed my mind. You know, I'm very quick to say, "Am I bad? Oh, I didn't even realize that." I've done it on the timeline multiple times, and I felt embarrassed. And guess what? I got over it. You know,
Yeah.
I was wrong, or I misread, or I misunderstood, or I just don't have that type of thing. But some people, they're afraid. They don't even want to be vulnerable. Our story. See, I think the other thing is we're because of our stories, we actually want to help people. We want to support our community. We want to help other Black people. I know for me, my passion is for Black children. You know,
Same
I
here.
want children to go through the shit that I've been through because I feel like if I had somebody who was, you know, in my corner growing up, things would have been a lot different. I wouldn't have had to work through so much shit to have a healthy relationship with anybody in my life, you know? Um, but when you're serious about what you do and what you talk about, and when you're just somebody who's on the internet trying to either antagonize or live out some weird fantasy or play this character that doesn't really exist in real life, then you're going to be on here saying shit like Russell and, you know, Sierra's a thought and doesn't deserve a happy ending in her life, which we don't even know if it's a happy ending. We don't know what the fuck goes on in their marriage, right?
Sister Vita, like I remember once I was having a discussion with somebody about my issue with the lack of connection between Black Native Black American people and Black immigrants. And I described Black immigrants a lot of the time as acting like white supremacy's sugar-free devil's food cake, right?
What?
It's yeah,
What does that mean?
they're all of the flavor, but none of the guilt, right? They're all of the blackness, but none of the history, none of the justice claim, none of the baggage. Like, you ever notice how when you go on job sites and stuff like that, and there's you, and then there's like, you know, somebody from like, you know, the Caribbean or from the continent or whatever, and the difference between how white Americans treat them as opposed to how they treat you. The same behavior that you express makes you a nigga. It makes them exotic.
I
It,
get
you
what
know,
you
the
mean.
same hairstyles you wear make you ratchet, makes them
Yeah.
unique,
I
right?
think he talked about something like that because he used, I think, Talib Kweli's mom. So I think she's Jamaican, or they thought she was Jamaican or something. And I think she was Jamaican. She talked about how she would be treated by white people versus how Black Americans are treated by white people.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, T's Haitian, so he was basically breaking down like that's a real thing. And I was like,
But see, now
I
I'm
never
using
knew
that.
that.
I'm
I
using that
never
as an
knew that.
example because these content creators that we're talking about, they too are saccharine. They have the flavor people like, but none of the
Mm.
substance, right? Like, when you engage with Kevin Samuels or somebody like him, you can say, "Well, we've examined this topic. I'm already up on this. He put me up on game, right?" Without you ever actually having to put in the mental work needed to truly understand the dynamic, right? You get this pseudo understanding of the various relationship dynamics between us. It's a facile pseudo understanding. And you can literally hold that up. And other people that have a vested interest in keeping their understanding shallow too will actually validate you for acknowledging this shallow understanding that you have. Like, if you notice, when you read like the tweet that you put up earlier, that brother Black whatever Black, I forget his name or
Yeah.
whatever, but that brother put up that tweet. You ever notice that behind him there's always at least two or three other motherfuckers that co-sign?
Oh yes.
right?
Absolutely.
So not only did he, be able to divorce himself from any real understanding of the dynamic, right? He had to really engage anything of substance based off of what Kevin Samuels had to say, but he has that reinforced by other people who have a vested interest in not engaging the topic too.
Yeah.
It's
No,
a
absolutely.
self-reinforcing cycle.
Yep. 100%. Jaron or Jerron, I think I want to say Jerron. Jerron Williams says, I've watched his show and he does advocate for therapy and says he's not a one stop shop. It seems like he's trying to get black men and women to come to the table, be reasonable, make a deal with each other. First of all, the last part is definitely not true. I can tell you that for a fact. Because you don't berate people and think, oh, this is the way to get people to connect. That's bullshit. But this is my thing about people say, well, he advocates for therapy. Because people have told me that before. What does that mean? Like, I've seen women on Twitter berate black men and then tell the black men, you black men need therapy. You guys need to. I see people post links to therapists, right?
Wait a minute,
So
Vita.
So
Wait a
it's
minute, dog.
antagonizing. It to me, it's like let me antagonize you and then tell you need therapy.
Wait a minute. It's like white folks would be like, "Oh, I support civil rights for black people." Okay, what that mean? Like, what are you doing to ensure that we get, our due in this society? Like, I can advocate for anything, right? I can advocate for anything that people think is good. I can advocate for, babies to get whole fresh milk from the store. I can advocate for all this shit. Advocacy is not action. And I think, sister, that really ties into a lot of the shit that we're seeing too. People are able to replace rhetoric with work, with action,
Mm, yes,
right? If
yes,
I have
one
the
hundred
right
percent.
rhetoric, or as the youngsters say, this performative nature about myself, right? Like I look the part, I sound the part, and so on and so forth. I don't have to be the part. I don't have
Mm-hmm.
to actually be what it is that I advocate. I only have to mouth the words. And it's vapid in the sense that no one gets anything out of it except the person putting on the show.
That's my point. Thank you. You are hitting exactly my point because I love looking up mental health experts and researching shit. There's a lot of people on YouTube that you can look up, right? And I always recommend you do their background checks and stuff. And most people who are actually doing the work that you can check their references, you can check to see their background work and all that stuff too. So don't just listen to anybody. But the people who are genuinely trying to help, they're not berating the people. They'll sit and they will also announce where I'm not a one-stop shop. I'm just sharing information. I'd say that when I teach my
Mhm.
classes. Listen, I teach trauma-informed care. I'm not a therapist. I don't do trauma therapy. I'm gonna just teach you what trauma is and what it does and how it plays out. But if you take my class and you learn all this stuff, and you start realizing you have a trauma issue, you need to go to therapy. I tell people that all the time. But my thing is, I'm actually trying to help you. I'm not going to do a training where I berate you and tell you what do you rate yourself as? Well, I think I'm an 8. What do you rate yourself as? And you can't say 7. That's what he says, right? So he limits what you can actually say.
I need
So
to watch the brother more. I swear, I've watched him a few
I've
times. He's
seen
not my
way
cup
too
of
many
tea,
clips.
but
I want to, like I'm gonna post some like a couple other girls clips, but I'm not gonna show his. I really think his like, and also out of context, his stuff can come across even worse. So I think that's a little even unfair to him and unfair to
yeah,
the conversation.
yeah.
Because that's what people do. They'll take like the most climaxed part of that conversation,
Mhm.
and then they'll only show that one clip and say, "Look at how terrible this is." So I don't want to do that either. So
Yeah.
I don't have full episodes to show you the whole conversation.
No, no,
But
I could definitely go check the brother's
yeah, and
content
I've
out.
definitely
You know what
and
I'm
I've
saying?
watched whole shows, so I'm not just talking like as a person who just seen some clips. I've actually went to watch because I wanted to make sure I knew what I was talking about before I said anything.
Hmm.
He asks people to rate themselves, and this is why I say he doesn't just do it to women. The women clips just typically go viral, and he's been playing into to the controversy by having like fucked up headlines for his YouTube videos that aren't even really they're sensationalized versus what the conversation actually is. But so he's playing into this shit. But telling someone to rate themselves and then telling them that they're wrong and that they should rate themselves lower because you see them as lower is not a way to help anybody. First of all, what telling someone to rate themselves looks wise or whatever wise, in my opinion, is a waste of time. Why are we talking about rating yourself in your looks? Let's talk about why you feel the way you do in relationships. Let's talk about the fact that you have an anxious attachment style. Let's talk about the fact that you have an avoidant attachment style. He won't talk about that. He'll tell her she's too masculine. It has nothing to do with masculinity. People think shit is gender specific. That's not even gender specific, right? Because
I'm so over that bullshit.
yeah,
Like,
but
look,
we have
I'm sorry. We human.
binaries.
We humans. There's certain traits that are just the same amongst men and women. Like, I don't know if it's been because of this sort of backlash against the excesses of feminism or whatever the case may be, but I've been seeing a spate for many years now of men who try to create these hard and fast archetypes of masculinity. Now, don't get me wrong. When you've had your masculinity denied you, right? When it seems like the whole society is dead set against you just being alive, let alone being alive in male. I get that you want to support your brothers, you want to support yourself, right? You want to build up images of masculinity that you can support, that you can. But the problem is that a lot of these cats go way the other direction and say, okay, if a man isn't this, and this, he might as well chop his balls off and throw him down the garbage disposal.
Right.
Wait a minute, what the fuck? Like, what if I'm not any of that? I'm still a man. I'm still who I am, right? Like, what I've taught brothers about masculinity is that they should learn to define masculinity for themselves, right? You don't have to be this hard nosed, hard charging, I'm the boss, everybody do what the fuck I say, alpha male, which doesn't even make sense when you look at the research behind that shit. But I don't want to digress. I don't want to digress. But you don't have to be that to be a man. But if no one is telling you that, if no one is telling you that manhood is defined by you and what you are as a male, right? Then you're going to be susceptible to all of these rigid narratives that just don't make any damn sense. They create false dichotomies. Men and women are a lot alike.
Well, it's funny because a lot of the things that they think are differences aren't really differences biologically. They're differences because we can socialize different.
Facts.
So, for example, people talk about, women wanting, being more open to being vulnerable than men. It's because men aren't really allowed that growing up.
You sure the hell ain't. What you crying for?
So of course it's going to be a little bit more challenging for most of the men, not because men biologically naturally are this way, because that's how people will try to sell it to you. Oh, that's because he's a man. No, it's because he's been conditioned that way. It's because he's been socialized that way. He's been traumatized into hiding his feelings,
Yeah.
The other thing is, just because you have these ideas around masculinity that are wrapped up in what you've seen on TV, what people have told you, doesn't mean you have to adhere to those.
True that.
At people in real fucking life, right? My favorite people to look at are fathers. I love looking at fathers. Black fathers in particular, but honestly, all fathers, because it's just really interesting to watch them. You have different types of dads. You have, and I was a nanny, you definitely saw the array of families and how they operate, right? You have the dad that's super involved. He knows what his kids eat. He knows what games they play. He's not because he's at home all day. He works and comes home just like every other.
That's your boy. I didn't even let my babies leave my presence to go visit other family members until they was like 1 year old, 2 year old. Like, seriously, I was super involved. Was there at their births, right? Like, that was just my way.
But that is masculinity. That's a father, right? But people will say, no, it's the dad is the guy who's a disciplinarian, who's hard, who comes in, who just makes sure things are taken care of because he's just the provider, he's not the nurturer. And we think, oh, that's what masculinity is. Not necessarily. That's what his experience with masculinity might be because of his inability to connect with his family. It's not a good thing.
No, it's not. It definitely isn't. But like you said, sister, I think a lot of the times, okay, so it really ultimately comes back to the unexamined life. A lot of the issues that we face as a people come from the fact that very many of us live an unexamined life. We don't ask any substantive questions, right? Like, I'm not saying that we have to be all, these super philosophical minded, highbrow, intellects. No, but what I'm saying is like, there's a story, right? This little girl was watching her mom make a Thanksgiving ham, right?
I know the story.
So her mom took the pan.
I know the story.
And she cut the end off the ham. She put the ham in the pan. And daughter was like, why'd you cut the ham off the pan? And she was like, well, that's the way my mom taught me how to cook the ham, right? So let's go ask grandma, right? So they go ask grandma. He said, Mom, when you used to cook the Thanksgiving ham, you used to cut the end off the ham. Why'd you cut the end off the ham? She said, well, that was kind of the way my mother taught me to do the ham. So let's go ask great Grammy, right? Finally, they get to great Grammy, and they say, Grammy, I cut the end off the ham. Mom cuts the end off the ham. Why did you teach us to cut the end off the ham? She said, well, my pan was only this big, right? So like I needed to cut the end off the ham to fit the ham in the pan, right? But because that question was never asked, that behavior continued on from generation to generation to generation.
Right.
The unexamined life is a trauma in and of itself. And in a lot of ways, it's a self-induced trauma because all you have to do to end that is just start to ask questions. Just start to look at what drives you to think the shit you think, to feel the way you feel.
But the hard part is you have to know, like we talked about before, feel safe enough to do that or know that you can do that. How often do parents shut down critical thinking in their children and then get mad that their kids can't critically think? Why would you do it that way? Why? That doesn't even make any sense. Well, you've been shutting down their critical thinking since they were 2. You don't even realize you've been doing it, right? We don't even, because we shut down, we'll say this talking back. How dare you question me?
Yeah, don't be asking me all these goddamn questions.
Exactly.
Because I said so.
So we've been conditioning ourselves to not even ask a lot of these questions, and sometimes, to be real, we don't even know we should be asking them until something happens. Like for example, in your story, the mom didn't even think to ask. It's just what it was.
Exactly.
I'm sure there were other things she might have asked about. This just wasn't one of them because it's just what it was. It's just how you make a ham, And it's even in my own family, I thought you could, when you make onions and you chop green onions, that you couldn't use the white part. My mother never used the white part. My Mexican homegirl was like, "Girl, this is how we make our tacos. What the fuck are you talking about?"
Right? Like,
And my mom just thought she said that she didn't like because I found out later it wasn't because you weren't supposed to eat it. She didn't want it to be too strong of an onion flavor. That's where the strongest part, the strongest flavor is in that bottom part. And if you're not a big onion person, you probably don't want that heavy, strong onion flavor. You just want the light onion flavor.
Yeah.
But my brain, I would have passed that on to my own kids if I didn't know if my homegirl hadn't told me. Like, oh, you can use this whole thing, right? I didn't know. Because you don't think to ask it until someone points it out or something happens. I would have never thought to ask that question. Hey, Mom, why don't you use the whole onion? I just never thought to ask it. That's how she did it. Same thing with asparagus. You cut it down to a certain point, you throw the rest away. It's just what it is, So how do you get to the point where you know to ask these questions? How do you even begin? Especially when you've always been taught to shut down that part of yourself. You just go with it. It's like religious people, right? Yeah, I had a friend of mine, which is so funny because he's not religious now. But when we were in college, he used to say to me, "Baptist born, Baptist bred, Baptist dead." That was his thing. Baptist born, Baptist bred, Baptist dead. Meaning,
okay, I got it, but damn.
He was born Baptist. he was raised Baptist, and goddamn it, he was gonna die a Baptist, right? And because we were having this conversation around religion, and he happened to bring that up because I was asking him questions about why he believed what he believes. At the time, I was going through my own sort of transition out of my cult that I grew up in. So I was, talking to people, learning different things. So I'm talking to him, and I'm asking him questions. And like most people who are defensive of their beliefs that they themselves have not challenged, he got upset. And that's when he told me, Baptist born, Baptist bred, Baptist dead. And I was like,
he didn't come up with that. He got that from somebody.
He definitely was raised saying it, right? He was definitely, I'm sure that's what they said in his church growing up over and over again, because that was supposed to be your identity, right? He didn't think to question being a Baptist or Christianity. It's just what it was. Everybody, he grew up in the churches. I think his grandfather was a pastor or something, right? So you don't think to question it because it's just life and what it is. Most of our thoughts we don't think to question. It's just who we are and what it is. And we just assume that's what life is and what it's supposed to be.
But there also is a part of that that ties into what we were discussing earlier about how our perennial worry and fear operating in this society keeps us operating in that lizard brain, right? Way deep down in the lizard brain. We when you think about it, a lizard is either hungry or it's resting. It's either attacking or it's chilling, right? Everything is binary, right? And when you operate from your kind of lower brain, everything is black and white. Everything is binary, right?
Exactly.
You can't see shades of gray because that requires cognition, that requires deduction, that requires intuition. And those are things that you have to start operating from up here in the frontal lobe. You know what I'm saying? Right? So you asked, how do we get to that place? I think, first of all, conversations like this is important, right? So what we're doing tonight is definitely going to add our contribution, if nothing else, to that effort. But I also think that we need to get past our fear of not knowing, right? One thing you can say that a lot of Black people will find beneficial is that there is certainty in binary thinking, right?
Yes.
There's certainty in it, whether you're right or wrong. You feel me? Like I'm not gonna make a true claim. I will just simply say that binary thinking produces an answer. It produces certainty. Now you could be wrong as fucking, all get out. Doesn't matter. You have an answer. You have a place to operate from, right? Black people, I think, need to become more comfortable with uncertainty. That's not to say that we should be, just crazy making risk takers. But what that means is that life in and of itself is a mystery, right? You need to embrace sometimes the uncertainty of things.
So as a person with extreme anxiety, what you're saying sounds terrifying.
Right? Trust me, I am that person with extreme anxiety, and it's terrifying to me, which is why I do it.
So no. That's the thing. I know you're right? But I also want to, even with you saying it, I'm feeling the fear in that. What I mean by the unknown and the uncertainty of things is one of the scariest things for me. I'm afraid of death 24/7. Like, it's one of the weirdest things. I hate that about myself, but I'm always scared. I'm always afraid I'm gonna die, or somebody I know and love is gonna die that day. I worry about it every single day, all day, every day, right? So that uncertainty, because you never know when something bad is gonna happen, it drives me insane. So being comfortable with uncertainty is definitely a challenge, especially when you're operating like most Black people in that survival mode. Most of us are fucking around with this PTSD shit. You know what I mean? Diagnosed and undiagnosed and not diagnosed, right? So being able to be comfortable with uncertainty, that literally comes from being and feeling secure in your childhood. Literally comes from that, right? Your ability, the reason why people who grew up in loving homes with parents who supported them and weren't abusive to them, the reason why they are able to have healthy relationships most of the time growing up is because they don't have this constant fear that their partner is going to leave. They don't have this constant fear. I mean, and it's not a constant fear that if they leave, I'll be devastated. So it's best I don't connect at all.
Yeah.
Or if they sabotage their relationships because they're constantly afraid the partner's cheating on them, right? So they
Yeah.
constantly sabotage, make the person so uncomfortable that they leave. But people who have secure attachments, they tend to work with the tide. Okay, we had a rough day today. That doesn't mean the thing's going to end. Yeah, I may not know how this is going to end. We might break up 10 years from now, but right now I know how to live in the moment. When you've been traumatized and you've been living with trauma, that's extremely difficult. That's why I always talk about Black people. We live in survival mode, and it's difficult for us to become long-term strategists that way.
Mm-hmm.
All we ever think about is, well, how am I going to feed my kids today and tomorrow? How am I going to pay these bills? How am I going to keep this light on? How am I going to make sure, there's shoes on my kids' feet or on my own feet? Like, how do I make sure? So we spend so much time worried about tomorrow that we don't think about 100 years from now. It is
But you
hard
know
to
what,
get to
sister?
that
We have
ability to
to
think
we have to
long term,
create that
that
space.
survival mode.
We have to create this space. Like just like everything else that Black people have to do in America, we have to make this. Like there's certain, I call it infrastructure, that we're gonna have to build in spite of everything else, right? In spite of racism, white supremacy, in spite of all of it, there's certain key things that enhances our humanity that we are just simply going to have to put in the legwork to build. It is not going to be something that anybody is going to give to us. Because here's the problem. We can understand why we operate from the place that we do. Like we can understand the trauma and this, that, and the third. But the problem is that no one outside of us has an incentive to change that dynamic. Nobody.
Absolutely.
Nobody does. There is nobody on this planet that has any benefit that they gain, any incentive that they have to see us whole, to see us healed, to see us living intentionally, consciously, and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, whether we like it or not, whether it seems just or right or not, is immaterial. We have to do this. There's no if, ands, or buts about it. To the extent that we don't,
Facts.
like you said, we live in insanity, that constant fear that drives us insane. We
Yes.
can't, that's not living.
Right. Facts. Absolutely. I wanted to ask that because I know that you would have a good answer. And I think one of the things you pointed out is that, well, that's kind of the job that you and I have, and those of us
That's our
who
job.
do have that understanding. This is what we should be using our platforms and our spaces for, is to be able to get us moving in that direction, as opposed to driving more disconnection, which is what I think the content of a lot of other people who are just trying to build a brand off of going viral and having controversial statements. I think that they're more problematic because it makes our work a little bit harder. Because
Yeah.
what we're trying to do is get people's eyes to be open, and they're like, no, let's shut them and only focus on what I want you to focus on, which is this nonsensical debate about nothing, right?
Call
Um,
it out. That's what
there,
you've been doing. That's what I've been doing, right? You're doing the work every time. You say, wait a minute, why do we even give a fuck about that? Like I've seen you, I follow you heavy on Twitter, right? And you'll be like, why are we talking about this? Like, why is this even a conversation? I read it says in your voice, and I'll be like, yeah, why the fuck are we talking about this bullshit, right? Like at the end of the day, the people who are our truest advocates will be fearless, and it will be evident in how they maneuver these spaces, right? We will not bow down to people who say to us, "Oh, well, why are you knocking that brother's hustle? Because his hustle is basically literally making money off of your fears, worries, and concerns. That's why I'm knocking his hustle. You got a problem with that, right? Like,
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying? When you think about it, Sister Rita, we actually become more free to the extent that we operate from that fearless space, right? We are legit as content creators showing people an example of what it's like to live fearlessly, right? To
Yep.
get to get on a screen where your face could literally be seen by billions of other human beings and speak your speech with no ambiguity, no hesitation, unwavering, that in and of itself is an example in courage, right? So one thing that I think we can do is continue to do what we've been doing, which is supporting everybody that operates from that place.
Yeah.
And then continue to call out this deleterious, user bread and circus type content, right? Just call it out. You don't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have. We don't have to be. Um. We don't have to be haters or whatever. People gonna say whatever the fuck they want to say. Let them say it, right? The work is in reaching that one person who's tired of hearing Kevin Samuels. Because trust me, if you call into his show, I'm not talking to you tonight, right? If you click every time the notification come and you click and run to his video, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the person that clicked on one of his videos and did not get nothing from it. I'm talking to that person who went to a video hurting and left it hurting. I'm talking to them.
Exactly.
I'm talking to the person who never heard about this person, but also too has questions about why their relationships with other people are so messed up. How come they can't be happy? What is happiness? Those are the folk that I'm talking about.
That. I'm interested. I like what People's Park Forever said. People who are in coalition with you are incentivized to help you. Doesn't mean they know how, but incentive does come from solidarity. And I just want to highlight the key phrase here: people who are in coalition with you.
Facts.
People who love you and care about you. You can't be in coalition with somebody and be in solidarity with somebody you don't love, right? You have to have a love there. I don't mean an individual love. I mean like a love for your people, right?
Yep.
If you are in coalition with these people and you love them, then you are incentivized to help the best way you might know how. Maybe you don't know the right way to do it. But when it comes from love, it's a whole nother energy that goes with it. And the other part of that energy is, oh, I meant to do this out of love. I see I pushed this person away. Let me go back to the drawing board and see
Exactly.
we try to reconnect a different way versus I'm just going to say, well, look at you. You didn't listen to me and berate the person because they didn't listen to you, right? That's not love. Love says, okay, maybe I need to go back and figure out how to connect because this isn't working. I'm really driving them further away, or I'm driving them more into the behavior that I'm wanting to save them from or help them from, right? That's part of love. That's part of being in coalition. That's part of being in solidarity. So you're right. It's like when I teach my parenting classes. It's not about getting the shit right. You're not gonna get it right. You're not a robot. They're not a robot.
And your kids don't care.
It doesn't matter. As long as you don't give up and you constantly work on connection, they see that. Period. You don't have
It amazes me how resilient children really are.
They're so resilient. If you are there to support that resilience, if you sit up, so for example, you did something that was hurtful towards them, you admit that and acknowledge that. And then guess what happens when they do something that's hurtful towards you? They know what that looks like. They know what empathy looks like. They know what that connection looks like.
Yep.
But what most people do, well, I won't say most people, what many parents do is, well, I was right in the first place. They shouldn't have did that, and I wouldn't have yelled at them and told them that. I would have told her she was fat in that dress.
Yeah, that goddamn abuser shit.
Right?
I can't stand it.
I know. You're like me, so we're really sensitive about shit like that. Like that hits us.
Yeah, like I'm trying not to get triggered right now. You know what I'm saying? Because you know me, I'll be on that end like.
No, I know how we both are because I'm the exact same way. But I mean, but my point is that when something comes from love, that interaction looks way different, right?
Absolutely.
So it's not about being perfect or having all the right answers to help somebody. I don't know all the right answers when I go to help somebody. Honestly, 9 times out of 10, it's trial and error anyway, right? Because even though you might be on the right path, you might say, okay, I know this person needs more support in this way, but a lot of times we be in our own ego.
Well, hold up a second, Sister Vita. That addresses kind of like another piece to the solution.
Mm-hmm.
You just gave a gem for those who are interested. Because if you are a parent and you make a mistake, your child can heal from that.
Mm-hmm.
How true is that in your relationships with everybody? The
Mm.
woman make a mistake, y'all can heal from that. Why you gotta listen to somebody tell you, oh well, she cheated on you, so she for the streets. Like kick that bitch to the rocks. Okay, never mind the fact y'all got 5 years into it, 2 kids, you know what I'm saying? Y'all got a house together, and this and the third. She fucked up. And she's responsible for her fuck up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there is nothing that happens between two human beings that love can't fix.
Right.
That message is never transmitted by any of these
Right.
motherfuckers.
Right. Because it's
By
not about love.
anybody.
It's not about love. It's about being. It's like what you talked about before. It's about being right and wrong. It's these binaries, right? Somebody got to be right and somebody got to be wrong, and
They
that's what
love fuzzy math.
it's like movies and TV shows, right? We got to have a good guy and a bad guy. Who's the hero? Who's the villain? And that's the only because I believe, especially in Western society, we've been conditioned to see things like that: wrong, right,
Dichotomous thinking is the
reward,
bane.
reward, punishment. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Like we don't have this perspective. Like, okay, things don't have to be this way or that way. It could be a different way. I'll give you an example. I actually have this tweet here. Um, that I thought was interesting. So one of the things you said is you pointed out how I always say, well, why are we even fucking talking about this, right? Another thing
Mm-hmm.
that I do that a lot. Other thing that I do is if I think it's a dumb conversation, but I think I can offer some sort of other angle in there, I try to do that too, right? Because hell, they're already in the conversation. Let me see if I can introduce another concept to this binary conversation everybody's
I
having.
remember this tweet.
Yeah, it's a dumb conversation, but I try to take it somewhere. You know what I mean? So she said, so a man broke up with this woman for doing the busted challenge after he asked her not to. Is he tripping for leaving her and not letting her do the challenge, or was she tripping for doing the challenge anyway, despite what I guess her man said?
Yeah.
Now, of course, people are gonna be like, "Well, she was wrong. He was wrong. He can't tell her what to do. She got to respect her man. Women got to know how to submit and all the bullshit stuff people were saying, right?"
Right. I remember that shit. That shit devolved into a shit show.
So of course it did because the conversation was dumb. But again, me trying to like introduce another angle, I said, "Well, fuck who was wrong or right. Sometimes you have to consider your partner's needs." Now, the problem with that statement for people is that it fucked them up, and I'm gonna tell you why it fucked them up because they're trying to figure out which side I was on, and they couldn't do it. Because I tweet, what does that mean? What that means is it's not about who's wrong or right. This is your fucking partner. The point is, I'm doing something that hurts them, or this is something that concerns me and I don't know how to communicate it. The real problem is they don't know how to communicate. That's the fucking
Facts.
problem. Why does she want to do the busted challenge? That wasn't in the scenario. What does it make her feel like when she's doing it? What need does it meet for her to be able to do that? What are his concerns? Why was he concerned about it? What are his feelings about it? And
So many questions, sister. And you
you're
know
not
what those
getting that.
questions are?
You're supposed
Those
to be,
questions are nuanced.
and that's my point exactly. You told me if this is my partner and I'm saying I want to do something, I'm not a busted challenge person, but let's say something else I want to do, right? And my partner says, "Well, I don't like I don't want you to do that." My thing is, well, I can do whatever I want to. I mean, technically, I'm right and I can, and technically, he's right. He can leave, but we're in connection. We're a partnership. It's not about who's right at that point because we both right. I'm right. I can do what I want, and you're right. If you don't like it, you can leave. We're both right. Now what?
Now,
Yeah,
sister,
now
I'm gonna
it's a
have to
fucking relationship, right? But
I'm
let
gonna
me
have to take a little.
hold on. I want to
Go
finish this
on, go
thought.
on.
So now there's no fucking relationship because you guys are both right. You're both right, but now y'all ain't together. So move on in this situation, right? Now versus a conversation of, hey, I really want to do this thing because this is what makes me feel good. My partner says, well, this is my concern because when you do things like this, this is how I feel. Wow, I didn't know it made you feel that way. Yeah, and when you tell me I can't do it, it makes me feel like you don't respect my decisions and you don't trust me. And them not feeling trusted is hurtful. Then, oh, I didn't. My intention wasn't to make you feel not you like you weren't trusted. This is just my concern when I see these things happen. I didn't think about it that way, but that's a good point. Let's figure this out. So I want to be able to feel good doing this thing. Maybe there's another way I can feel. Maybe I do it a different day or do it a different way. Yeah, if you do it that way, I totally get that. That's a conversation. That's what
Agreed.
we can figure this out. It's not, you know what, you're right and I'm wrong. But people see the problem is that's too much for a lot of people to be able to do. It's too much for people, but we've been conditioned to only see good, bad, wrong, right, reward, punishment. We only see things in these binaries. So when we're limited in that way, when I say things like fuck who's wrong or right, people start thinking, so are you saying it's right, she's right to do the busted challenge, and the busted challenge is a need? And because I'm like, no, it has something to do with that. Everybody in that scenario had needs. Whose needs were what were the needs, and how what were the strategies to get those needs met? But that was
Agreed.
that's not surface level. So some guy got mad at shit I was saying, and he started saying some all kinds of. He said, "So there's a need for a busted challenge," which I never said or implied. But the thing I was saying was that he couldn't grasp what I was saying. And he said, "I understand you did imply that." Oh wait, there was another part to this that I missed. But damn it, I can't find it now. But shit. But at any rate, yeah. So my point is that he just didn't seem to grasp that I wasn't saying that the busted challenge was a need or anything like that. I'm saying that these people both had needs underneath the conversation. They need to communicate. We don't want to hear folks need to communicate. We want to hear who's wrong and who's right. How dare she not submit to her man?
Like you said, like I said, sister, certainty. We. You know what? We will demand certainty so much to the point where we don't even give a fuck if the answer right or wrong. For us, it ain't even like we talk about right and wrong, but black people don't use those words, right? We don't give a fuck about right and wrong. We don't. Because the moment we think something wrong, we're gonna forbid everybody from doing it. And the moment we think something right, we don't care about right or wrong. That's not even a thing. The one thing that we will have over everything else is
Mm-hmm.
an answer. Is certainty. We don't give a fuck if it's a right answer or a wrong one. Only that we're armed with an answer, which is why you see we can't waver from positions. Like black people who see multiple sides of an issue is considered fence sitters, wishy washy.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Uh, they what's the term when they call somebody where people pleasers, right? And it's that and the third. But no, the fact is that there's always going to be multiple ways of looking at the same thing, and
Not if you
that
black though.
inherently
You gotta
is.
be wrong or right though.
You know what? Life is fuzzy. Like for life is fuzzy math, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes the equation gonna have variables that you can't know the variables. Now you can still solve the equation, but the answer is gonna be 3a, squared. What is a? We don't know, right? It is what it is, but that's the answer. Now, if
Mm-hmm.
you're not comfortable with the variables being a part of the equation, then you'll never come to an answer. You see what I'm saying? No matter if you think you got the right answer, you won't have because the variable is a part of the answer.
Exactly.
Sometimes the mystery or the uncertainty is a part of
Or
what is true.
or sometimes it's just a whole nother way that this is a whole nother route to look at it. Like Huey Freeman just said, if you don't pick a side on social media, they're gonna kill you in the middle. The
Ah,
funny part
facts.
is that's 100% true. And
They finna drag you.
the funnier part is it don't even have to be the middle. It could just be a whole nother perspective that don't got shit to do with what they just said. They don't, because it's outside of this binary, because outside of their boundary that they created, they don't get it. And that's to me one of the problems of not understanding connection, not understanding what your basic human needs are. Because that was one of the problems that I noticed in this conversation. When I say understanding your needs, people think, well, busted challenge, that's not a need. I never said busted challenge was a need. There's a need that drives your behavior and drives your decisions, that drives your feelings. There are
Absolutely.
needs underneath that. It might be a need for attention. Yes, it's a biological, neurological, human need to have a desire for attention.
It sure in the hell is.
Imagine
Because we're a social species. Without somebody showing us attention, we die.
that's what I try to explain to people. So, so in this conversation, the guy he just couldn't seem to grasp that so I said, they have needs or whatever, right? And he says need is something that has to be done to survive. So technically, logic, not a feeling. What I described wasn't abstract, which is what I said. So, for example, autonomy is a basic human need. Affection is a basic human need. Attention is a basic human need. These are things our brains literally need to survive. Without those needs being met, we cause physical and mental illnesses. This is a fact. This is not even something that is debatable at this point. There's so much research that talks about stress hormones, how it kills you physically and mentally when our brains aren't getting those needs met.
Mm-hmm.
We need to see something beautiful. You literally, your brain goes fucking nuts if it doesn't see something beautiful.
Facts.
In fact, it'll start to make things dangerous that are beautiful, make things that are dangerous beautiful to you because you're that desperate to see something beautiful because your brain literally needs to see beauty. You have a biological need for affection. And that goes to another video real quick I want to go to. I want to get through because I don't want to run out of time. I want to talk about all of it. There's another video with this girl. I might even get to do some own shit because we kind of covered it. That shit was so ridiculous. But I'm opening on your end. I don't know why.
But while you doing that, I want to address a comment that Chaotic Goods made, where he says social media does not promote nuance. It thrives on dehumanization, atomization, and constant antagonism between strangers. Literally, negative reactions drive social interactions online. And I don't think I could have said that any better. I do think that in this discussion, we need to make sure to be careful not to equate social media with real life. Like, there's a lot of us that say, oh, black people had these bad relationships, this and the third. Look, I'm gonna be honest with you. Just going off of my own personal experience, my life experience, everybody goes through sometimes bad relationships and shit. But black people don't have any worse relationships with people, that they choose to mate with is anybody else, right? Like, I don't see us having a particular problem with deleterious relationships. Some relationships are good, some relationships are bad, but we're no different in that respect than any other people. But if you look at social media and you see social media as a reflection of reality as opposed to an imitation of life, then of course it'll make sense that black people's relationships is all fucked up. You don't believe me? Look at social media. Well, no. Social media is saccharine. I think that speaks to the greater point, Vita, that we've been trying to talk about with these corny content creators. They're saccharine. They're all of the flavor, but none of the substance. Social media, too, is all of the flavor, but none of the substance, right? How are you going to have a substantive, major, heavy-duty, in-depth, profound connection with somebody in 280 characters? I'll wait. Right? Like, it's not even designed for that, right? Like,
right.
You know what I'm saying? So
things like, FaceTime and whatnot. There's no way that those characters on its own is enough.
The thing is that I want us to make sure that we put things in their proper, or I should say, give them their proper weight. Social media is an offshoot of who we are. I consider it an imitation of life. Matter of fact, there's this game. I don't know if you ever heard of it, Sister Vita. Have you ever heard of Second Life?
I heard of it, yeah. I never played it.
Where these people have like whole avatars, like jobs and homes and all this other shit, but it's all virtual.
It's all
right?
Right? Yeah.
And it's you got whole people that this is their thing, that this is their second life. Now, who would argue that that's their real life? Most of them wouldn't even argue that that's their real life. They acknowledge that, hey, this is my virtual life. In my virtual life, I own a nightclub and I'm hella popular and I drive around a badass car and this, that, and the third, right? It's fantasy. It's an imitation of life. It's not a reflection of the actual reality. And we
Right.
need to make sure that we give social media its proper weight and understand that it is not, it's not even a 10-to-1 correlation to our real life. Because some of the
No.
shit that you read on social media can't be happening in real life. You're like, nah.
Oh, you mean, listen, I don't know where this fantasy land is where all these people get to have a husband that works where they get to stay at home. Because for some
Oh, wait a
reason,
minute. Or where everybody a business owner and you niggas just lazy.
yeah, or like, I mean, there's just so many $200 dates and all these things. Like, what world do people actually live in? So one
You
of
got
the
an LLC, but you took the STEMI.
but one of the things I wanted to talk about, listen, we're not even, people just be on there talking. Because I know everybody who talks, somebody said Frederick Douglass, if Frederick Douglass could have did it, we could have did it, or some shit. And I was like, because he was born a slave and died like a millionaire or some shit. And I was like, I don't even think Frederick Douglass would agree with you right now, but whatever.
First of all, how do we even know that's true? Like, anybody can say anything on social. You didn't put no link to
I
anything
didn't
showing the
see,
man's net wealth or anything like that.
I didn't see it. I
I
didn't
saw
know
I
that.
saw the tweet. And I shook my damn head. I was just like, this
But the
nigga.
comment was so asinine that I just couldn't even say. I was like, y'all can't even really be serious. Like, this sounds nuts. Like, you have never read a single thing from Frederick Douglass, but somehow you know his net worth. Get out of my face. Anyway, um, like, people just be talking. Seriously. But let me just show you. So this one of the things that this connects a lot of things we're talking about. One of those things, a human connection, we were just talking about a second ago. And I'll get. But the other thing that I want to show you guys about this is the way that people are trying to build a brand, but claiming that they're trying to help people, and so they say something that's almost bullying, right? And one of my biggest pet peeves is people use mental health terms, mental health perspectives, and things that are serious to build a brand, and then halfway get the information right and then share some bullshit. Because again, the goal is to get rah rah. The goal is not understanding. The goal is rah rah, right?
Right.
So I'm gonna show this. Hopefully you guys can hear it. I don't know if you guys can hear it. Can you guys hear that? No.
No.
Okay. Oh, I think I gotta click it. Hold on. Let me click it. All right. Let's go.
Can we normalize the fact that not everybody?
Okay.
Can we normalize the fact that not everybody is a victim? I said that if you stay in a toxic relationship simply because you don't want to be alone, you are weak-minded. And here come the weak women. That's not being weak. Some women just aren't as strong. Right. Weak. Well, that's not weak. Some women just need to heal. You can't heal from a traumatic situation that you're still in. I can't heal a burn if I keep touching the fucking stove. It's impossible. It's a lot easier to call yourself a victim than it is to take responsibility and accountability for the things that you allow and stand up for yourself. The great thing about being weak is you can always gain strength. And for the men that's saying that strong woman mentality is toxic, no, it isn't. You can love a man, respect a man, and build up a man and still be strong. You're just not going to tolerate bullshit. For those of you that think that I don't need a man mentality is toxic, no, it isn't. You don't need anybody in this world. You need water, you need food, you need oxygen, but you do not need another human being in order to function. In fact, if you do, something's wrong with you. Can we normalize the fact that not everybody is a victim?
Okay.
Okay. There's so much to unpack.
I know, and
Like,
I knew you would see what I saw. I knew it. So
okay.
you want to get? I want you to go ahead and give me your reaction.
So, yeah, I'm with you that people just need to stop with like this pseudo, psychological, like just
Like
stop.
halfway saying shit. Like accountability, yes, is important. Calling people weak helps who besides your ego?
Okay, so define accountability, right? Because accountability requires relationship, right? The last time I checked, if I don't give a fuck about what you think or how you feel or what you say, then I don't have to be accountable to you for shit. Like I could literally, you could be sitting there fuming. I'm gonna kill this nigga. I don't give a fuck, right? Like accountability automatically implies connection, right? It's as a matter of fact, accountability says that hey, your I'm vulnerable to you looking to see my role in the interaction, and you're vulnerable to me looking to see your role in the interaction, right? But people say accountability like being accountable, like they say, if you can't be accountable to nobody, be accountable to yourself. But accountability requires relation. How the
Yeah.
fuck do you be accountable to yourself? Like,
So this is my
stop
thing.
it.
This is my thing though. Like I am one of those people. I don't believe in self victimization,
Mhm.
but self victimization is literally a trauma response. So telling someone that they need to heal because they're weak does not help anybody. Because you're telling me I'm weak doesn't help me get strong. That's first of all, that's a myth in its own.
First
Telling
of
me
all, wait,
that's a
sis,
myth. It's like people
hold up,
telling
sis,
me,
because
huh?
you going on one, and I want you to go there. I want you to take this with you. People, like you said, that self abnegation, right? That denigration of oneself is a trauma response, right? Now think about this. You done been abused, mistreated, walked on, stepped on, dragged through the mud, told you ain't shit, you ain't never been shit, you ain't gonna never be about shit. Okay. And then somebody you expect to help guide you away from that confirms what you've now come to believe about yourself, but that's supposed to be healing somebody. That's
Thank
supposed to be
you.
fixing something.
Thank you. Exactly. Because again, her goal, like everybody else, was not to help anybody. It was to be, honestly, it was to be a judgy bitch. That's how the energy came across, judgy bitch. The content was judgy bitch. It had nothing to do with helping people who need to heal. You're just weak minded. You should just leave this guy. Do you, first of all, if you've ever been in an abusive relationship, you will have to, you know, the mental mind fuck that you're in. It's similar to being in a cult or anything where you don't realize you're in danger until it's too late,
Yep.
right? And then you don't know how to get out of it. Yeah, people tell you, well, it's like people thinking like you've grown up in a prison your entire life, and then someone says, "Oh, the prison door is open now." You don't know what the fuck is on the other side of that. You've only known this world. It doesn't
You
even. You're
institution.
afraid of what could happen because you don't even know what that is. What is freedom? What does that mean? Of course they're going to stay where they are because they don't know anything else. Plus, if they're afraid that the person that they're with is going to harm them if they leave, how can we judge? Like it just doesn't make sense to me how you're going, like you just pointed out, calling somebody weak who is already feeling low, who's already feeling judged, who's already feeling berated, who's already feeling depressed and
Yeah,
down.
part of the trauma is that you agree with the person that abused you. Like it, and that's not something you choose to do. People don't understand the nature of abuse. Abuse is forcing that mental change on somebody. The first time you get punched by your dude, you don't think you a piece of shit. But now the 200th time your dude punch you, you agree with him 100% because it's been reinforced over time, over time, over time. You actually agree with that. So then somebody come along and say, well, if you stay with him, you deserve to be punched. How does that do anything to you? You already agree that you deserve to be punched. He tell you deserve to be punched. You believe you deserve to be punched. Now this motherfucker tell you that you deserve to be punched, but that's supposed to help you. And not only that, but her logic, her chain of logic was flawed from the get go. Because the fact is that the only way you were able to be abused is because that person played on your need to be in a relationship. You
Yes,
do need a mate. I'm not gonna be homophobic or whatever.
you need
You
a
do need a
partner.
mate.
You
You
need a
need a
partner.
partner. You
Yes.
need somebody. You need people. All these motherfuckers talking about you don't need anybody.
That's
Lies.
bullshit. And when she said you need
You are
water, but
born
you don't
needing
need
people.
people, when she said you need water, but you don't need, I was like, no, you don't realize you literally need people just as much as you need water. You
Sister
literally
Vita,
need
you
people
remember
just
that
as much as
study
you need
they
water.
did with the monkeys, with the baby monkeys, where they fed them, they made sure that they had the proper body temperature and all of that. They made sure that they wasn't sitting in their own mess, but no one touched them. Those baby monkeys died in a matter of days. Those were primates, like chimpanzees. We have an even more in-depth social sense than chimpanzees do. You don't touch a human. You don't talk to it. you don't interact with it, that human will die. We have just as much of a need for actual connection and social interaction, touches, talking, communication. We have a need for that. You don't have it, you don't live. And this motherfucker comes out and thinks that she's saying something profound by saying you don't need anybody.
Which is insane. You can't go from you need to heal from trauma to you don't need anybody. You know, the number one way to heal from your trauma is close, connected, protective relationships. That's literally the number one way to make your toxic stress tolerable, right? Mm-hmm. Literally the only way is connection. It's when you had a natural disaster and your whole community comes together and supports you, right?
Yep.
That's literally what becomes more healing for you during one of the toughest times in your fucking life. You have to have that connection. It's the number. We look at kids who are, you know, when they're growing up and they have trouble at home, they always reach out to a coach or a teacher or some sort of a mentor in their life that helps them get back on that path, so that way they don't fuck their whole lives up because of this trauma and this pain. Which is why kids who don't have the intervention suffer the most, because usually those the adults around them don't think they're good enough, so they basically berate them and mistreat them too.
You know what, Sister Vita, this shit she said is just along the lines of what I'm gonna call moving forward the psychological bootstrap idea.
Oh my God, yes, I love it.
That we supposed to just mentally be able to just yank ourselves up by our bootstraps. If you going through pain, struggling, suffering, trauma, hurt, fear, that's just all you just need to do is just pick yourself up. You just need to stop being weak. We supposed to defy mental gravity and yank our mental brains up by our bootstraps. Just like we supposed to do it financially. I mean, damn, is people ever going to let black people actually need anybody? Like, are we the only motherfuckers on the planet who's supposed to just do everything by ourselves? Like, we just supposed to be self-contained individuals. Everybody else can need help, can desire connection, can want new experiences and all of this. But no, Negroes have to get it where they have to get it where they at. They just have to pull it up out of their brain.
Right. Yo, like, I love, so there's so much you said right now that I'm just so glad you said it, so I actually don't have to repeat it. But you are so hitting the nail on the head. I want to address what Colonel Gaddafi said. He said, to be fair, you got to give that speech, I'm assuming the one from the video we just showed, to someone in such situations at least once. I've been the relative of someone she's talking about, and I got tired of saving them. So this is the thing. You said you got to give them that speech at least once. Why? You just told me the shit don't help. So what the fuck is the point? It don't help. So the only thing that does for you is satisfy you because you're tired of helping them. So you feel good that you just told them about themselves. It helps. It does not help them. Calling people weak and berating them and telling them you just need to heal. Shit, that shit is hard.
Now, hold on a second, sister, because I think that Brother Gaddafi has a point. We have to make sure that we establish our boundaries too, right? Like, so you're right.
That's the point. That's
because you're right. Boundaries. There are people, like, you can't save somebody who drowning by jumping in and getting, right? You could toss a life ring. You can grab a pole or something, right? But at some point, you have to make sure that you protect and defend your integrity, yourself, right? So there are circumstances, not to where you give anybody this speech, but I do believe that we need to become more comfortable too with telling people that we can't do something. Why do black people have to fix everything? Like, seriously, shit go on. Sometimes shit go on and you can't fix it. Sometimes the only thing you can do is just commiserate. You can say, damn.
That speech is useless. That's my point. You're absolutely right. And I love that you highlighted that, because I would have totally skipped over that point. So I thank you for highlighting that. He is also highlighting that point of your own boundaries, 100%. And like I always say, empathy is never absent of boundaries. Never. I have all the empathy in the world for my father, but he was abusive. So I have to hold my boundaries.
Facts.
Love him to death. I will always love him because he did the best he could with what he had. Somebody asked me that on Twitter once, like, if he was abusive, why do you feel like you have to love him or make sure he's taken care of when he like? That's what I said. My dad will never ever feel like he has to be homeless because he's my dad. Because he made sure that I was taken care of, even in his fucked up mentality. He did the best he could, you know. So I would never have my dad just living on the street somewhere. And somebody said, well, he was abusive. What? Because I have empathy. I also have boundaries. He ain't living with me. So that's my boundary.
Facts.
So your boundaries are 100% important. But knowing that you have a boundary and you're setting that limit is different than berating the person because you feel like you don't.
I agree. Because that conversation proceeds like this. It'd be like, you know what? I'm glad that I've been able to be here, you know, with you through some of this journey. And I know it's been a struggle for you, but I'm going to be honest with you. I can't continue to carry this. Maybe we could get somebody else to help us out or, you know, start suggesting other options, other solutions.
Or sometimes you just got to let it go. And
sometimes you just have to say, hey, you know what? I'm sorry you going through it. And then shut up. You make some promises. Sister Vita, I'm telling you, sis, that's my shit. That's my shit. Somebody will come to me and they'll be running down a whole litany of shit they going through. And I will look them with all sincerity. Just no bullshit. I will look them right in the eye and be like, man, I'm sorry that you going through that shit.
Yeah.
And then I shut up.
That is hilarious.
I'm not, because I have limited time. I have limited time, limited energy, right? I have my life. Some people's burdens I can help carry. Some I cannot. And I need to be honest with them and upfront with them to let them know that, hey, I feel your pain. I feel where you're at. But I can't carry this one with you.
No, I definitely feel you. Well, it's just the way you said it.
I will shut up.
And then shut up. I was like, wait, whoa.
Hey, shut up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, shit.
Now, I'm serious about it. Because if you don't, then people feel like they can game you. Right? Because you ever notice how you be like, you're not really feeling the situation and you trying to be cool about it. You trying to be like, I'm not really feeling it. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not going to throw them under the bus because I'm not feeling it. I'm just going to let them know that I'm not really kind of with getting involved in the shit. So then you go, damn, that's messed up, that you dealing with that or whatever. And I wish there was something I could do. The moment you say anything after commiserating, you think you give them the option to think they can convince you to jump on board the train. No. If I cannot ride, then I'm telling you I can't ride. And so I'm going to say I can't ride. And then I'm shutting up. So there's no option to convince me to get on board this train. I ain't riding.
I 100% feel that. No, I've had to learn. So I'm one of those people, now that I know what a codependent is, I grew up a codependent. So, and I'm overly empathetic. I won't say that. I'm an empath, but I would violate my own boundaries to help other people.
Yep.
Right. And then be resentful that they didn't know how much I sacrificed for them. Right. Which is really a dangerous perspective to have.
Yep.
One of the things I had to learn, and I've learned more so over the years through my own healing, being more comfortable with myself, being comfortable saying no, being comfortable sharing my opinions in certain spaces. I've always been pretty opinionated, but if I feel intimidated intellectually, I would be more quiet. But now I don't feel that need. I'm gonna just say it the way I say it. I might not sound smart, but fuck it, But even the idea of telling people, no, I can't help you, or I can only do this much, because I'm given myself to people and they've totally taken advantage of that and they've run with it. Also, there have been times where I felt for them so much that I tried to take on something that I personally was not equipped to handle.
Yeah.
Like Colonel Gaddafi pointed out, he said, I'm not about to spend another 5 hours with the 10 tub concrete and quicklime, I'm guessing the weapon, to deal with their exes they won't leave. And that's these big cats. And I get it. And you don't have to do that. And remember, you clearly are not equipped for that type of situation.
Right. That's not even his mission.
And I can tell by the fact that you said that this big cats, they won't leave. The fact that that's frustrating, it means that you don't know how to deal with abused people because they never leave until something gives them that thing to leave. It's a really difficult space. So definitely, I want people. I learned really quickly. I am not equipped for certain situations. I'm not equipped for everybody's DV situation. That's just the
Yep.
reality. I can do my best to get you the resources or get you connected with somebody who can help you, but I'm not that person. I don't know how to help you in that particular way. There are things like ways I can help you, but what you need, I don't have the tools for. It's okay to do that. It's also okay to tell people no. I'm not going to put myself in one thing. One of the most dangerous situations you can put yourself in the middle of is domestic
It's a
violence
DV
situation.
thing. Yep. There
So
wasn't a brother. I forget where it was exactly, but wasn't a brother that got killed recently? Like in the last few months, he got involved in a domestic violence dispute or whatever, and ended up getting shot by the. I know it was something that where it was his brother that got. I mean, but it happens all the time. It's like a trope. You know what I'm saying? Where people get involved in people's, relationship issues, especially when it devolves into physical attacks and things like that. And some of them don't make it home. I mean, you have to know what you can carry and what you can't carry. I want to address the brother PB's comment where he said, bootstrap mentality is not a tradition in diaspora. Our legacy of survival is built on unity, where the settlers have a mythology of individualism. And that's true as hell. Like the fact is that everything Black people ever gained in this society, we've gotten it together.
yes,
We've gotten it through connection. All of this wanting, all of this being mimetic white people is killing us. Mimetic white people, meaning them, imitating them, aping them, right? Trying to be like them.
These are these smart people words. I don't know that.
Well, sorry, that's your boy. I'm
messing with you.
Suitably chastised, trying to act like white folks, killing us, right? You know what I'm saying? We're not them. We're not them. This doesn't mean that we gotta hate them or anything like that. But what this means is that we have to understand that dynamics that they may engage in, or things that they may uphold, or beliefs that they may expound upon or push or propagandize for, don't necessarily have a direct benefit to us. And we need to stop trying to imitate them and start to find our own way, our own path to unity, right? Because everything we've ever gotten and held is through connection to each other. It's always been that way, and it will always be that way. Because everything they've gotten and held, they've gotten it together. They didn't care that they was Italian, German, French, English, Portuguese. They didn't care if you was gay, straight. They didn't give a shit if you was Catholic, Protestant, atheist. When white folks get shit, they get it all together. And they will figure out a way to get it all together.
And they're white first, right?
Boom.
And they know, and they're very clear that they're white first.
I've been telling people.
That doesn't mean that they don't have infighting. We've seen it. We know that they do. We look at the Republicans. But at the end of the day, they ain't giving up that white supremacy regardless of who's in power.
Sister, I've been telling everybody, they see us as one big Negro. So why don't we see ourselves as one big Negro?
Because that divide and conquer shit is real. It's real. And, we're going to wrap because it's about to be 2 hours now. And I, got things I need to do. This, it's about to be 10. But I definitely want to appreciate you for joining me on this. So this conversation is
pleasure's mine, really. Like me, I love chopping it up with you. I love these topics, like anything where we to ask the hard questions. Because my people we ain't stupid. We're not dumb. No. We're everybody trying to tell us we all fucked up. Well, no, we're not. We just need to start asking more questions, is all.
Just like trauma is passed down, resilience is also passed down.
Damn right.
You gotta remember that too.
My people, we come from the baddest motherfuckers in this country. There ain't nothing messed up about us that we can't fix.
Bad motherfuckers in the fucking world, really. It's like I like what Dr. Joy DeGruy said, one of her lectures. She said, to be honest with you, we a goddamn miracle. She said, we gonna keep it real. We like the fact that we still here shows us how resilient we really are. Because look at how much has been done to destroy us, and yet,
sister, we are every single one of us.
We are.
Every single one of us are children of the impossible. We were not supposed to be here. None of us were supposed to be here. White supremacy went and acted overtime to make sure we didn't make it. But the fact is that we are here. We are living evidence of
Yes,
greatness.
absolutely.
And all we have to do is just simply know that and act on that. You know what I'm saying? Not mental bootstraps. We got to do that shit together. We got to come together and reinforce that amongst each other.
Facts. I think, thank you. That's a great way for us to close. And I want to close out also on Cat of Good statements. I think he made a really good point too. That he says, I think we also have a simplistic idea of what unity looks like. Unity doesn't mean sunshine and rainbows 24/7. It means understanding that bigger picture and who the actual enemy is. We can struggle with each other and realize the bigger picture and maintain that our main enemy is white supremacy. And
Facts.
I love that.
Unity is not unanimity.
I was just about to hit that one too. Unity is not uniformity, right? It's not the same thing. We can be united and not agree on every goddamn thing. And I think that's where sometimes we get lost, is we don't have an idea of what unity looks like for us because we've never seen it. You think all these Jewish people agree on every goddamn thing? You know they fight. But guess what's clear? You're going to go to that Jewish business to get your shit done. We gonna go. Look, I know how many atheist Jews I know. They still go to the synagogue and do all things they're supposed to because that's part of the culture and the connection and the communication. That's where the business happens. That's where, whatever happens, right? It doesn't matter if they don't believe in God at all. But they're still part of the community.
Yep.
So we have to have. I 100% feel that we have to understand that we're not going to all agree on everything, but we have to understand who our real enemy is, and that is white supremacy. And I also want to point out we have too much power in our numbers. We have too much power when we come together. Because you know why? Remember I was talking about survival mode? We feel safer. Humans feel safer when they have a group that's with them. That's why we tend to conform to groups and, we tend to do what the groups do. A lot of that's because our brains naturally adapt to our space and we feel safer that way. We can learn to feel safer around Black people, around each other and with each other. That's going to help us get out of that survival mode that prevents us from thinking long term, because literally that's what happens. Your prefrontal cortex and neocortex shut down because you're operating your survival part of your brain. As a people, we can adjust that if we can begin to feel safer, so we can get out of that defense mode because we know we have a group of people that got our back. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much. I appreciate all of you for supporting, donating. Make sure that you subscribe to us on Patreon, patreon.com/champagne sharks. It's scrolling at the bottom. And make sure that you hit us up. We're on Twitter, Champagne Sharks. We are on Twitch. You follow us on Twitch if you're not on Twitch already. All those good things. Like I said, Google us. We're everywhere. Mark, where can people find you?
Black Outcast Media Broadcasting on YouTube and on Twitter at Black Outcast. Trust me, I'm always on Twitter. That's my shit. So, yeah, but that's where you'll find me. Or shoot me an email at blackoutcastmedia@gmail.com.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. You guys know where to find me. Be the Star. I'm Lifestar Media on Twitter. It's that because it keeps suspending me. So go at your Lifestar Media. And I love talking to people. So make sure that you don't just follow me and then get mad I don't follow you back. Follow me and say something so I know it's you and I can follow you back, because I get a lot of people that follow me sometimes at one time because somebody's arguing with me in a tweet, so people start following me and shit. So I don't know who's who. So if you don't interact with me, I'm not going to know to follow back. So make sure you hit me up. Make sure you hit up Mark, Black Outcast Media. He's fucking dope, okay? If you like Champagne Sharks, like the shit we be talking on here, you're going to love the shit he be talking. And listen to his show. Subscribe to him on here on YouTube. Fucking amazing. And I'm trying to get like him when I grow up, because he's fucking
Go on now. Go on now. I love my people, and somebody got to do what I do. So why not me, right?
Look, nobody else can do it like you do it.
I'm the man standing behind the man standing next to the man. You know what I'm saying?
Look, you the only you we got. So that's what
I appreciate y'all. Hey, I thank you so much for the opportunity. We're gonna do this again. I promise.
Of course. Of course, we gotta make this like a regular thing, and I gotta get on your show. I gotta do that. So have a
Let me know. I'm doing a series of broadcasts, but I'll do a special one, just kind of like something midweek or something where you and I'll even let you pick the topic, and we'll just do it. Because I always like the topics you pick. So
I want to talk about kids. You know, I want to talk about the kids.
You sure you want to do that one? Have you seen my old videos talking about child? Okay, sis. But you know what? Be careful what you ask, because I go hard in the paint. I'm unapologetic about my defense of children.
You do. I don't either. I'm not apologetic either. So I feel you. All right. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment. Make sure you let YouTube know how dope you think we are. And peace out.
Peace.